Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us, especially after lunch. You awake? Was the music getting you going? My name's Beth Parkinson, and I'm really excited to be here today. Rockwell Automation's been talking about the connected enterprise for the last couple years, and it's really concepts and things, though, that have been around for decades. How do we get value from connecting the shop floor to the top floor, connecting your suppliers and your customers throughout the life cycle? How do we get value from that? And that's something we've been talking about for a long time and really building information-enabled architectures. Each of you, I would assess, and your companies are at different stages of being connected, whether it be connecting within your operations, connecting across different facilities or plants, or connecting with your suppliers or customers. There's the technology aspect. What have you already deployed? And what are things that are on your roadmap and you're considering deploying? Are there certain technologies that you've looked at and said, there's no way we're deploying that in our operation? And of course, for each of your markets, what are the competitive threats that you're seeing, areas where you think there's risk that you have to fix? And then where are there opportunities that you think if we did some changes in optimizing what we're doing, we could really get after a different part of the market? We could take on a new service, build different products, et cetera. We're seeing this in the commercial space all the time with the products that we might be using, in terms of different services that we've got from the products that are internet connected today. Really, the objectives for the manufacturing industrial market haven't changed a lot through the years. Having high quality, being responsive to your customers, and increasing the productivity, getting the maximum amount out of your operations. But there's a lot being discussed today about how we're operating right now and what changes are going to be needed to make to be competitive in this global marketplace. And this isn't just an industry discussion. Although there's lots of industry consortia and standards bodies, how many people are active in like IEEE or ISA? Anybody here on any of those committees? A few? So as you know, there's a lot of things being discussed in terms of what technologies are out there and how we can get more value out of what exists today, but also in the future. Things like the Internet of Things is being talked about. What kind of opportunities are there, but what standards are required? Cyber-physical systems. How do we do more connectivity between machines to machines and being able to run processes on their own? 3D printing. How is that going to impact all of the industries that we have right now? And those are all on the opportunity side. But of course, there's security, which is now a constant topic for everyone in this market. There's no longer something that we can have security by obscurity. We used to think that, hey, it's an automation system. Nobody's going to hack into it. But we've seen proof that that's not the case. But there's also a new dynamic, and there's global world leaders and governments around the world who are investing in initiatives and programs to look at how to increase productivity and effectiveness of the manufacturing within their companies. And this is really impacting the overall smart manufacturing strategies that are in the market that you guys are probably seeing today. Whether it be Smart Manufacturing Leadership Coalition in the US, Industry 4.0 in Germany, the newly talked about Made in China 2025, and we're seeing more and more countries have their own specific manufacturing-focused initiatives around smart manufacturing. But the reality of it is, whatever of these future technologies or strategies that we're hearing about and seeing, starting to look at how do you improve connectivity within your enterprise is a foundational principle to improve your operations today and also be ready for any of these visionary aspects in the future. One of the topics that I brought up in the Internet of Things, it's being talked about a lot in the market. How many people have picked up, whether it be trade journals or business journals, Internet of Things, read articles about them? A few? Anybody not hear about the Internet of Things? Afraid to raise your hand? Anyway, I highlight here the Internet of Things in the sense that sometimes we talk about, is it just a bunch of hype? Is there really anything there? Can I get new business value from it? Well, Accenture did a CXO survey to about 1,000 companies, and the results of this were pretty interesting. The companies basically highlighted a lot of areas where they can see value coming to their business. 84% of them think that the Internet of Things will bring new services opportunities to their operations, new business strategies coming out of it. Almost 90% think job growth, more think revenue growth, productivity, the influence of digital will impact their business, This was interesting. 61% said this year they think that digital strategies will impact their revenue for their company. A year ago, it was only 31%. So the scale of change of where people are seeing technologies impacting their business is dramatically rising. But on the other side, only 7% said that their companies had a comprehensive strategy that was funded to execute these Internet of Things initiatives. So we're still really new and early there. They said the majority of their leaders, they don't think understand really where the value can be had. So we have a lot of opportunity for education. In addition, from a manufacturing perspective, we've highlighted in the past some statistics from Cisco's Internet of Things, the value at stake. And I don't know if you guys have seen this, but they did a big report where they looked at what was the value at stake for the Internet of Things across all industries, public sector, private sector. And the industry that had the largest value at stake was manufacturing. They highlighted these 5 areas that you could get, your companies could get value from by investing in the Internet of Things. Now, in addition to things like supply chain and logistics, customer experience, and innovation, asset utilization and productivity were on the list. Note, this was also on the list for the Accenture survey of the first areas that they think we can get success in. So both in a CXO level and a manufacturing executive, a manufacturing area, we're highlighting some of the same business values, so there's synergy there. You might ask, well, why, if only 7% have already implemented, already have funding, why is it important today? The reason why it's important from a manufacturing and industrial operation is because people are formulating strategies now. And if manufacturing has the largest opportunity, there's folks that if you aren't already involved in your company, probably looking at your operations to thinking, how can we improve what's happening today? But we're early. How many people are familiar with Geoffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm? About a third of us. This was a big, this has been used in the high-tech area for many years. I think it came out first in 1991. And it was looking at the introduction of new technology and what it takes to go from innovation and testing and use cases to mainstream. Well, LNS Research did a webinar last week. And in this webinar, they highlighted a research where they took a survey from manufacturing executives and asked them basically what their plans and adoption were around the interactions around the industrial Internet of Things, so very specific for our market. And the interesting thing that came out of this is that really it plotted exactly on Geoffrey Moore's technology adoption curve. 35% of the folks surveyed said that they were already implementing strategies around the industrial Internet of Things or were planning to within this year. But the mainstream, 47%, said they were still trying to understand what it was and what value could be taken from it. And that there was a need for education, actually asking in this survey saying, we think we need more education on what it is and how we can get value. And of course, there's the 19% that said, yeah, we might know about it, but we're not going to do anything about it. The key is technology is moving fast, faster than it has before. I think when we look at consumer technology, I think 6 years ago the iPad was introduced, and now I barely use it because I've got my iPhone that I do everything on that I used to do it before. Folks are expecting to be able to use some of the technology that we use every day in our personal lives and also professional lives in the industrial space. Manufacturing and industrial operations are becoming more and more connected. So where are you in your company? What does your roadmap look like? Are you getting pressure to do more? I know in talking to one customer, he was frustrated because I mentioned the iPhone. He uses FaceTime all the time from a video perspective, and he's been pressuring his IT counterpart, saying, I want more video in my industrial plant. It was a large plant. I'm seeing some heads nod. I want some more visibility to what's happening, and if I could have video connectivity in lots of different places, it would save my folks who are working on the floor running around all the time unless they really needed to. But the IT executive that he was working with said, it's too expensive, there's too much bandwidth. And he's like, how is it possible that I have this on my smartphone and I can't get it in my business? We need to have more and more collaboration between IT and the operations folks to figure out how to get our operators, the folks on the floor in manufacturing and industrial operations, the kind of tools that they need. How many people were at the mobility session earlier today or yesterday? Okay? Starting to look at not just How do I take what I currently have on my computer and put it on a different screen? But thinking about what are the right kinds of formats? What do I need to do? How does it change what I'm doing here? Some people are already realizing the benefits of being connected, and other folks are just getting started. I think everyone here is at Rockwell Automation TechED, so you guys are already on the path of learning, moving. Some of you already have great use cases. There's a lot of great success cases here that you can learn more from too. But at the most basic level, what is the connected enterprise? It's really about enabling the equipment, machinery, sensors, and devices in the manufacturing and industrial operations to be connected and controlled via intelligent software. This isn't a dream anymore. In the past, the technology and the collaboration requirement was complex and expensive. But really, there's technology innovations today that are changing that. It's making more and more possible. We're really at an inflection point where, just like in our homes, we can buy internet-connected learning thermostats that we can control from anywhere using our smartphones. Anyone have a Nest implemented in their home? Couple people. It's pretty cool technology. In the industrial area, we're seeing a massive wave of affordable, smart connected devices that's available to, and if you combine this with smart software, powerful mobile computers, and the convergence of network technology, it enables these machines, equipment and devices to communicate with each other and subject matter experts securely, giving you unprecedented capabilities for the manufacturing and industrial operation. It's giving us visibility into the operations and logistics and new ways to link processes and facilities to suppliers and customers. It's giving unprecedented ability to collaborate across the enterprise, between people, between teams and departments, and even between the machines themselves. And unprecedented efficiencies. By transferring information into insight, you can increase ROI, get to market faster, and dramatically reduce waste. So we've already assessed that we're kind of at that early adopter stage of things like Internet of Things and true connectivity. And sometimes it's hard as we look at individual use cases to figure out how does this all come together. And we've been asked, well, what does a connected enterprise look like if we've truly implemented Internet of Things and connectivity across not just one facility but multiple facilities? Now, I could point to some examples that are in the market today. So, for example, Anheuser-Busch recently diverted their production of beer to clean drinking water and packaged it to ship 50,000 cans of drinking water to the Red Cross in Oklahoma because of the recent disaster with the weather. Okay? Now, they've been doing this kind of practice for a while, I think since the late 80s, to help with any kind of disasters. But today, their processes are very efficient, and they're able to make those decisions very quickly to turn it and get product to market faster. But today, we're going to talk about a box of cookies. Yes, this might look like a very simple box of cookies, but behind it is a complex, coordinated process that relies on thousands of data points from connected machinery, devices, and people within the connected enterprise. Today, we're going to talk about 3 stories of complications that arose before this company was connected. The first story, we're going to start at the beginning, when that order was placed. So this cookie company had been trying to get this large retailer as their customer. And they finally got an opportunity, but it required a rush deadline. This company needed a rush order of 50,000 boxes of cookies with a unique recipe specific to that retailer and unique packaging specifically to that retailer. The reality of it is, in the past, they wouldn't have even been able to consider this order. They didn't have enough time to really look at whether they could have enough capacity or the visibility to determine if they could take the order and successfully deliver on that deadline. Often there's a lot of manual work, taking the recipe from R&D, keying in the new details and instructions to each machine and sensor on the line. There was multiple machines that were affected by this order, and they all needed to be reconfigured. In addition, all the testing systems needed to be updated, and of course, getting the updated graphics and packaging to meet the needs of this new retailer. It's manual work, and therefore it can be very slow work. But because this company was connected, they were able to take the order And they were able to take the order because they had visibility into their operations to know that they could handle the capacity. They had the capacity to handle this order efficiently. Because this company had visibility across all of their manufacturing plants in the region. They had real-time views using visualization into their operations, where they could see key performance indicators such as OEE to really look at the availability, performance, and quality of each plant and each line across of it. They were able to look at also the visibility across their supply and operations, logistics, and schedules. And because of this, they were able to figure out where they were going to be able to have the capacity to be able to build these cookies during the rush deadline. So all the stuff that we talked about before that was manual, much of this is now being able to be automated efficiently. The order can come in from the ERP system. We can get the recipe and the graphics from the PLM system so that the order number, recipe, and work order instructions can get transferred into the MES system for execution. The recipe components broken down into equipment and role-specific instructions and transmitted to the connected machines, equipment, sensors, controllers, and operator panels. It's all incredibly efficient. They're able to produce more cookies quicker than ever, and they're using technology and software to increase the performance of both their machines and their operations. So we mentioned the mobility session earlier. They're able to use tablets to do kind of everything throughout the steps of the process, from scanning the ingredients when they first come in, as it arrives, and throughout the production. Documentation can be added throughout this based on not only what ingredients came in and from who, but also what steps were taken along the way, along with what operators were touching it, et cetera. Things like tracking quality holds immediately so the people in the production line could react quickly. Or at the beginning of where to store the ingredients so that the oldest ingredients are used first, minimizing waste. They can also use things like indoor awareness, that it would allow the displays on the tablets to change based on where the operator was and focused on their roles, really allowing them to see what they need to see, correct instructions or information at the right time for the right person, avoiding errors, reducing errors, and enabling to precisely monitor and control each stage of the production. Security can also be improved. Authentication is required at each step. Maybe it's a badge swipe or fingerprint, or in some industries, maybe a retina scan to verify the identity. This information be captured with that genealogy report to associate different operators with the different steps. And when we talk about security, there's the physical security, but there's also the intellectual property security. Say, for example, this recipe is a secret recipe, and they want to make sure that that recipe is not leaked. We can make sure that each operator only sees the level of the recipe that they need to see to run their part of the operation. Keeping a secret a secret. Now, we talked about security. In addition, these machines and sensors are connected to standard network protocols. They're able to communicate not just with the people and the operators, but also each other. As the recipe arrives, the machines are able to download the configuration instructions and configure themselves. Now, this might seem like magic to some, but we're actually seeing some customers starting to use this in practice. They're testing it. They're seeing how it's possible to reduce time. Things that used to take hours or days are now taking minutes without a person turning a wrench or pushing a button. Automatic line system adjustments are able to keep the lines moving smoothly. Those smart sensors can detect when the machines are speeding up or slowing down. And the system can make adjustments to keep things moving smoothly. They can even coordinate with automatic guided vehicles to make sure the right ingredients show up at each station at the right time at the rate of the production as it's actually happening. And each ingredient is fully tracked using unique identification codes. This helps keep a complete genealogy report as the ingredients are combined, separated, consumed, and transformed. So, this isn't a dream anymore. Most of what I talked about is available to do today. And there's examples at this conference of folks already doing things like this. It's here. This technology exists today. And this company could handle this custom rush order and get to market faster because they could coordinate their people and machinery more efficiently than ever. That powerful ability to collaborate is what leads us to our second story. So in this story, It takes place when a conveyor belt breaks down and the company's ability to collaborate saves the day. In order to meet this rush deadline, all of the machinery had to run at full capacity. There were 2 forming lines that actually helped shape the cookies as it merged into one conveyor belt before it went into the oven. But what happened was there was a bearing failed on the conveyor belt, and the machine had to shut down. We all know that if a bearing shuts down, if the machine shuts down, then production stops. And when production stops, that equals lost money and potentially the lost ability to meet that deadline. But in the past, nobody would have been able to notice the problem until it happened. The machine shut down and production stopped. A technician would have had to been brought in, and if they weren't on site, it could have taken longer. And if there weren't the right parts available, then that would have taken longer to figure out how to get the parts on site to fix it. Stopping and restarting equipment can also add more wear and tear to your overall production line. So this was really a problem. But luckily today, this company's connected. And it's able to collaborate not just between people, but between the machines. So, long before the bearing breaks, sensors on the conveyor detect the increased vibrations, the torque to the motors, and the machine detects that there could be a catastrophic failure in the future if things aren't corrected soon. Smart sensors can detect the changes so small that it's hard for us to hear, and even the folks who have been on the line very long and have that tribal knowledge about when something clanks and they might need to fix something, these sensors are able to give you more information quicker than ever before. And because this machine is also connected to the network, as soon as this problem happens, it automatically can do 3 things. The first thing is it can notify the operator with dashboards with the right alarms to signal that there's something happening. The operator can inspect the information from the tablet and also pull in his off-site process engineer via video chat to get instant feedback on the alarm. If the problem's really severe, you can pull in the person who built the equipment, the OEM, and get their input on what's going on. The second thing that can happen is that machine can self-diagnose and schedule a work order fix during the next scheduled downtime, and also ensuring that the parts are in stock when that happens. Because it's fixed before it completely fails, they don't need to shut down, and therefore they don't lose productivity and they can stay on track with the schedule. The third thing that it can do is the machine can communicate to that OEM who built the conveyor, contributing to that macro feedback report to improve work and maintenance schedules. Instead of relying on the mean time to repair, that crude average for machine maintenance, they can actually now look at how to keep that equipment running based on actual needs to be serviced versus just a traditional schedule. And of course, this is really big data at work. The OEM is running analysis on equipment, and maybe not just this conveyor, but multiple conveyors that are similar from other customers, to start seeing new patterns and think about better ways to service this type of equipment. It enables an OEM to get better OEE scores and allowing the equipment to work for much better, much longer. By being connected, this cookie company was able to solve a machine failure on the line. They prevented the production from stopping. They prevented it from happening. People and machines are connected, and they're able to collaborate and do it more safely and securely. So that leads us to our third story. Now, in this scenario, this is a scenario that happens after the cookies are made, packaged, and then the truck's on the way to the distributor. It's really the last thing you ever want to have happen. The quality lab identified salmonella in the peanut butter. A really serious thing, but this was a trusted supplier of peanut butter, so they really only were doing scheduled tests. Now, sometimes these tests take longer and the peanut butter's already been used and consumed. Now, the reality of it is, once they find this out, they have to react. And in the past, this could be a disaster, because the only way to react to it could be shutting down the whole operation to try to find where the contaminated ingredients are. Date codes to track the ingredients were really all they had, and these can be crude and just give you a rough idea of when the ingredient was used. By the time the batch was found, it could be late in the process, and these cookies with this peanut butter could already be on the shelves of a grocery store. They might need to publicly recall those cookies, since there was no way to really isolate that ingredient. And if they failed to get the contaminated cookies back, before anybody consumed them, somebody could be getting sick or worse. As I said, it's a mistake you never want to have happen. And recalls are extremely expensive, as many of you know who are in the industries where you've had to deal with recalls. It also can be damaging to your brand's integrity. And today in the area of social media, news spreads really fast. How many people have seen recall information pop up in their LinkedIn or Facebook feed? Few people, right? I have. So this can damage their brand integrity way beyond the community of people who actually got these products. But because this company was connected, they had unprecedented visibility into their operations and logistics. I mentioned earlier, they were able to scan each ingredient as it arrives, track it through barcodes and RFID tags throughout the whole production processes, scanning as they arrive, when they go into the mixer. The vats can have unique IDs. And really, it can go all the way through to the packaging where you have an RFID or serial number associated with that specific box. So as soon as they detect the contaminated peanut butter, they can instantly pull this report and figure out the situation they have to deal with. How far in the process did it go? With these advanced genealogy reports, they can see the full history of all the suppliers of each ingredient. So with this peanut butter, they can actually see which equipment did this ingredient pass through, on what day, on what time, and even who worked on that equipment as it went through production. They can isolate within minutes which boxes of cookies are contaminated. And given that they found out that these cookies were already out on its way to the distributor, they can know which truck had that box of contaminated cookies and where it is because it's tracked via GPS. The driver can be notified and either turned back or told not to complete that part of the delivery, stopping the boxes before they ever hit the shelves of that retailer. No public recall was necessary, and more importantly, no one gets sick. And because this company is connected, they have a global view of their operations. They can see which other sites had the same ingredients from that trusted supplier, and they can call them and make sure they get put on quality hold until they can ensure that that product is safe. They can also immediately contact the supplier who they got the peanut butter from and make sure that they're aware of it so they could potentially notify the rest of their customers, potentially decreasing a major health risk. Now, say these cookies actually made it on the retail shelves. We actually have customers who are looking at how to use serialization not only just through to the retailer on packaging labels, but also how to communicate with end customers. Imagine if you saw that peanut butter recall or that cookie recall on your Facebook feed, and you were able to actually go scan on your phone that serial number, and it could take you to a website to see if your cookies actually were on that list of being contaminated. And based on what that need was, potentially that customer could communicate with you either based on the severity of how to react, based on if you had actually consumed some, or if you hadn't, some way to maybe entice you to continue buying their products. That closed-loop customer communication. Now, we actually have a customer success story that's going to be today at 5 o'clock that's talking about a similar scenario in baby formula. So check it out. But that's not part of our story about the cookies. That didn't make it to the shelf. This cookie company was able to be connected. Because they were connected, they were able to see thoroughly throughout their supply chain and operations, collecting and tracking thousands of data points during production. One of the many advantages of a connected enterprise. They avoided costly recalls by locating and stopping the contaminated cookies, saving money and preserving their brand integrity. And most importantly of all, they could have saved a life. So, an information-enabled connected enterprise is a more competitive enterprise. There are opportunities for those taking advantage of it, and there are risks for those who are not going to address any of the need to modernize. But achieving a connected enterprise involves a lot of decisions and actions across people, processes, and technology. And it's not easy. And sometimes the technology part is the easier part. It's the cultural side that's harder, right? So how are you working across all the different parts of your organization to figure out what is your strategy? How can you guys be more globally competitive by being a more connected enterprise? Looking at how do you assess where your operation is today? What needs to be upgraded? Maybe it's security, networking. Do you have legacy automation systems out there? that really are at an end-of-life stage and aren't going to allow you to move ahead? Do you have a lot of data, but you're not sure exactly what to do with it to make it work for you and get the right information to the right people at the right time? Or are you thinking you need to figure out how to improve the productivity of your overall process and optimize it? What are things you can do to improve that operations? And of course, collaboration. We hear it time and time again that without collaborating within your organization, but across different parts of your company, different business units, we'll never get to a truly connected enterprise. I hear it a lot about, say, people who build machines wanting to have more connectivity and visibility into the end user site where their equipment's running so that they could actually help keep that equipment running faster. And yet the challenge that a lot of end users is they're worried about the security of giving people access to that equipment. How do we help fix some of those things between the end users who are running the overall process and all of their suppliers and partners that are contributing to their ability to be successful? Each of you is here at Rockwell Automation TechED. You're taking steps already, and we want to hear from you. Whether you're an early adopter and already have examples of how you're deploying Internet of Things use cases or how you're increasing the connectivity in your organization on network and security and having success with it, what's working? Where are the successes? But also, what are some of the challenges you experienced? And then if you're just starting on this journey and just thinking, gosh, I wish my company would move faster to improve some of these areas of operation, where are you struggling? Where can we help? Because the key is, how can we come together, continue to improve the manufacturing and industrial operations for success in this changing global landscape? I want to thank you all for joining us today. And if you have any questions, I'll be in the back. Have a great day. Thanks so much.